Hey everybody.
Hello.
Well, I'm Hob.
I'm Jamie.
And this is
Dutch and Dragons.
A weekly series where we get coffee and ask questions and answer them about Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games. Today's topic is...
So you've played WoW.
Or more specifically, you've played MMORPGs or video game RPGs, and now you want to transition into playing tabletop RPGs.
It's a really weird world that we live in. Like, it used to be that everyone I knew that went into electronic RPGs came from a D&D background, and now I'm seeing a lot of the reverse.
True story. So what's the first question on our list?
The first question is, what is the difference between a video game RPG and a TTRPG?
For those of you who don't know, TTRPG it means tabletop RPG, and the major difference is that in a tabletop RPG, you are not a single actor in a scenario. So in MMOs and in video game RPGs, you might team up with other people, but each quest is individually yours in most cases, and you're very much a single player who may sometimes have to interact with the group, but all of your leveling, all of your skilling, all of your capabilities are specifically to your benefit, even when you're using them in a team environment.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up pretty well.
I think that sums it up, and one's played on tabletop with pen and paper.
Yep, and the ones played on tabletop with pen and paper are generally significantly more group-oriented and teamwork-oriented, and they require a great deal more effort, a different skill set, and a great deal more thought effort, I think.
Yeah. All right,
so,
ready?
On to the questions.
On to the question. How can I help my players understand how combat varies in TTRPGs and encourage group communication in combat?
Ooh,
That's a good one.
This is a tough one, because I don't think we've really entirely worked it out in our game. We have gotten better with it, but
it's still hard, because what a lot of video game players tend to do is they see the bad guy and they rush in to kill the bad guy, and there's not a lot of coordination, and we're just about to order coffee.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Oh, I remember you guys.
Yeah, probably a good thing. Good.
Yeah, I saw you guys yesterday.
Yeah, we were here yesterday.
Yeah.
I want to get a medium.
Small, what?
Oh, medium.
What?
Yeah, I want lots
Horse
of tea.
pucky.
Lots of tea.
Horse pucky.
Lots of tea.
I would like a small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer. And no whipped cream. And a medium sweet sunrise black tea, iced.
Lots of tea.
Sweet sunrise tea.
A hazard.
Okay.
Still?
Would that be all for you guys today?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a small ice extra shot coconut milk caramelizer and a medium ice sweet sunrise black tea.
Yes.
Oh, it's gonna be $8.
There you go.
Thank you. Are you guys up to anything fun today, or
No,
just
not
passing
really.
pretty much?
I'm
Just doing some stuff.
gonna go buy scrubs.
Yeah, gonna go buy scrubs.
Oh, scrub. Oh, what do you do?
I'm a medical imager.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, this little guy was popping out.
That's okay.
So I was like, it's been really...
Might have to turn it up or something.
I think so. It's this...
Do you need an extra hand? Here, I'll hold the card.
Yeah.
Yep. Make life easier.
Oh, yeah, those little squares.
A little square.
It's angry at its life. Poor thing.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
That's cool. I want to do medicine, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do like the radiology, like scans, things like that? Or?
I do a lot of that. I'm focused in ultrasound, so sonography. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite modalities.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thanks.
you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day too.
Okay, so where were we?
Talking about getting your groups to work as
Yes.
a unit in combat.
So getting your group to work as a cohesive unit takes careful planning, I think,
Well,
and
we still
encouraging
haven't
them.
gotten ours to really do it.
Part of it is they're going to
Shiny
run in,
moments.
they're going to be quiet, they're not going to be paying attention to what everybody else is doing because they're going to be thinking about what they're going to do next. And then suddenly they're going to realize that the whole situation has changed and they can't do what they were going to do next. And then they're going to be confused. So you have to get them to talk to each other. You have to encourage them to know their characters well enough that they have a plan that is flexible in case the plan changes. And as you go on, eventually, hopefully, they'll get better, but sometimes they just don't.
One of the strategies you can use is by having an NPC with them that says, okay, what's the plan?
What's up,
Hey.
Jamie? How are you?
Yay!
Good.
Good, good. Nice to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Always. Oh, you got a medium today.
Yes, I need all the tea.
Wow,
She needs
we're
all the
feeling
tea.
it. I got you. Da-da-da.
Thank you.
Awesome. You got it. And there's that for my girl.
Excellent.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank
Have a great
you.
one.
See you soon.
All the tea.
All right. You were saying.
Play on the side. One of the strategies you can use, especially if you have people who've never, bobbleheads, wait for the bobblehead, who have not done a lot of tabletop RPG, is to have an NPC with them that says, okay, look, we're looking down and we can see the carriage. This is most likely an ambush. What's our plan? And introduce the idea of coming up with some sort of plan in the beginning. And that that NPC can also be like, oh, the plan isn't working. Try something else.
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of different strategies you can use. I try to get them to make a plan ahead of time. I also try to encourage them to communicate with each other during combat. One of the things that I found is a lot of times they stop talking during the fight, and that is the most crucial thing for them to do, is to communicate with each other during a combat round and during a combat session.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
You can also try a little bit of positive reinforcement, in which if they do bother to stop and make a plan, always have the fights go a little better, and even if it's kind of rigged, because if they start to, even on a subconscious level, start to see that, hey, when we have a plan, our fights go easier, they go better, they go faster, they'll start to make more plans, and then you can go back to making them harder combats.
And they'll also start to stick to them, I think.
All right,
next.
question.
Next!
How can I help my players pick the best class for them when they've come from a video game RPG background?
I don't have a good answer for this. I've thought about this question. I don't have a really good answer for it.
Well,
you had a good answer, though.
For what I do is it takes a lot of understanding. I'm assuming that as the game master, you've played your fair share of electronic and tabletop games, and having a good understanding of how the mechanics work and how they're different are really great. So, for example, if I have someone come to me and says, I've played World of Warcraft and I was a hunter in World of Warcraft, I want to play a ranger in D&D, I want to go, okay, so before you commit to this, let me tell you how those two are different, how they differ. Not going to have an animal companion that can run in and tank everything and just sit back and pew, pew, pew. And you can, that's a function, but your animal companion is not going to be as tanky
That's right.
as the one in World of Warcraft. And help them understand the different mechanics. And then I go, okay, so if you're the type of person who likes to stand back and do a lot of DPS, if that was kind of their style as a hunter, then I would start to go, okay, so here are the classes that go best with that play style, that stand back and do DPS. Maybe they played a rogue in World of Warcraft or a monk in Diablo. Then I tell them how the rogue and the monks in D&D are kind of different, but those up close, do a lot of damage style characters are what I would gravitate them towards.
And actually, I feel like Diablo is a good allegory. Maybe not the newer Diablo, but the older Diablo 1, Diablo 2. The Necromancer doesn't really fit, but the Sorcerer is a pretty close analog. Barbarian is a pretty close analog. The Necromancer sort of kind of fits into the Wizard bill, but not so much. So that you can use other video games, as a good point of reference for them as well.
Yeah. And to kind of get that idea of what kind of, like, do they like to run in and where the action is? Do they like to stand back? Or do they often play support
Measuring
kind of
their
characters?
play style, yeah.
What strategies can I use to help my players transition from video games to TTRPGs? That's a good one. So one of the things I've noticed about video game players is they really don't know what to do with their downtime. I go, you got to the village. Now what do you do? And they all look at me like, what?
I want to shop in the store. Is like, okay, what can I buy? And I think that
they're not used to this idea where there is no, like, exclamation point above anybody's head.
Right. There's not another quest giver
glowing
immediately.
trail to lead you to them.
No glowing pea trail or anything like that. No. So the problem here, I think, is that in most video game RPGs and MMOs, your interactions with the world around you are kept
scripted.
In a very small scripted box. And because of, even in open world RPGs, they're very scripted little boxes. And the reason for that is because you cannot predict all of the potential avenues that a person might take to get to information. We, as people, are better at being able to predict that, and we're better at being able to be flexible about that. And until they make a video game that has an AI that is controlling everything, and boy, I really hope they don't do that because it will kill us all. What will happen is what we have the opportunity to do is we have the opportunity to adapt to what our players do. So we can encourage them to do things like go to the inn and carouse and gamble and play games with the non-essential non-player characters that exist in the world, because that adds flavor, it adds life, it adds color to everything that they do, and it engages them in the world.
But if they're brand new, one of the things you can do is instead of going, okay, you hit the city, what do you do? For your very new to tabletop gamers, is you can say, okay, you hit the city. Here's some things you can do. You could go to the inn, and inns are a really great place. Common rooms are a really great place to hear scuttlebutt, to get dice games on.
She said scuttlebutt.
I did say scuttlebutt. You can go to the library. There's a small library. Maybe the librarian has some knowledge or some stories about local fairy tale or local tales and local legends. Maybe you could go hit up the captain of the guard and see what's going on there. Like, give them a few choices until they get comfortable with the idea that, like, the sky's the limit. You're in a town. What do you do? And
eventually they will start exploring on their own. And when they do, encourage it. Reward that exploration with things that they might not have gotten otherwise.
Yeah. It's a good way to get them.
Finally, a short question.
What do I ask this NPC?
It's actually a really terrible question. Yeah. I should have taken it out. Yeah. So one of the problems that we've run into is that people coming from video game RPGs, when they are confronted with questioning an NPC, they lock up. They don't know what to ask.
There's no choices.
You don't have your 4 choices on the screen. Or you don't have a wheel of choice like in Mass Effect where pick this option or this option. You have to come up with the questions on the fly. And with that being the case, a lot of times people freeze and they don't know what to ask. So gently nudging them or prompting them with parts of the conversation for things that they might key off of helps. If they just come up to a complete roadblock early on, you can say, well, here are some things that you can try asking about. You can also refer them back to any notes that they've taken, and I do strongly encourage you to have your players take notes all the time. They might not ever be useful notes. I've just come to accept that. But every once in a while they will have gleaned a bit of information that will actually be useful to them, and they'll go back to their notes and they'll be like, oh, holy crap, I was going to ask about this, and then they'll have a question to ask, and that's good.
Another one is when they're thinking out loud and they hit on something that they should ask. I will just have the NPC go something like, okay, well, we just came across that apple vineyard, or apple vineyard, I really just said that apple orchard on our way in. I might have the NPC go, the apple orchard, ooh, the apple orchard is scary at night.
Let's go to the apple vineyard, Jane.
Yep, I said that. That was me. So having the NPC just give them information. I mean, might not be what you really want to do, but it is a good way to sort of introduce them to the idea of conversations with the NPC.
Absolutely.
Next question. What do I do about players who want to power level before facing the main quest? Because that is a video game strategy. And I have come across so many gamers, like gamers, who come into tabletop who I don't know why they don't understand this, but I, a person, am I'm controlling this last boss. So if you spend months leveling your character to level 20 before you go meet the boss, that boss is now level 22.
So the problem here is that video games encourage power leveling. They just do. Because
I do it when I play video games.
It makes the game easier if you're higher level than everything. And
I like to go bash their brains in with one foul swoop.
So discouraging that behavior in a tabletop RPG is ideal, but it is difficult because it is something that is so heavily rewarded in video game RPGs. So you have to start out, I think, by explaining to them that when they start to go, well, we need to level up more before we face this boss, is stop them and explain to them, take time out, step out of game, take the time out, step out of game, and explain to them that this is not a video game RPG and that power leveling won't reward them in the way that they think. Now, seeking a special magic item or a more powerful magic sword because it might be helpful, wholly encourage that.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Go exploring, let them go look for things that they hear about, but make sure to bring them back to that main storyline and encourage them to pursue it sooner rather than later. One of the ways that you can do that is by moving events forward while they're doing other things. So if you have a villain that is going to raid a town and they know that raid is imminent, but they decide to go find this other object for the purposes of defeating that villain, have the town raid occur while they're gone. Yeah. Because it makes the world real. It encourages them to recognize that the world is not going to wait for them. Yeah. It's not a video game RPG. The world doesn't wait, so the plans have to go forward. And yes, it might change what your plans were for your plot, but adjust, adapt. That's part of our job as Dungeon Masters. Yeah. And that's it.
And I always try to go with the reward of your players. I'm a positive reinforcement kind of gal. So I really love to positively reinforce my players for doing cool and smart things like, okay, we need to go get this sword, but this raid is happening. Let's raid first, sword later. I might give them a clue to where the sword is if they've chosen to do the raid first.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always that.
One more question. We have time for one more.
Why can't I just kill everything to complete the quest?
Because this isn't a video game RPG, and you cannot be a murder hobo.
Unless your DM is into that.
Unless that's what your whole game is about. No, realistically, killing everything is not the answer. And that's kind of what that question is intended to highlight. Yeah. You know, the people in the towns are not always your friend, and I encourage you to use the people in the towns against your players sometimes. I also encourage my players not to kill everything that they encounter, because sometimes diplomacy
works.
Or
getting information from that guy.
A social encounter will result in a better outcome than if they had just killed whatever they encountered. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised. I faced my players with a very unusual situation, which I expected them to engage as a combat encounter. They chose not to. They chose to go the diplomacy route, which was surprising to me.
It worked out.
And I'm super stoked about the fact that they chose the diplomacy route instead.
Real quick, this is a question, but I just want to hit on it real quick because it's actually a pet peeve of ours.
Okay.
Priest to cleric, why can't I just spam heals? If you get someone who's played WoW or lots of MMORPGs, the priest classes in most MMORPGs are made to be glass and breakable and stand back and heal. So when you get a lot of these people who make this transition, they grab a cleric and they set the cleric in the back of the bus and they try to spam heals, and they don't understand that clerics in D&D are not the same as priests in World of Warcraft or a lot of these other MMOs.
And so knock it off. If you play a priest in an MMO or a healer in an MMO, stop playing clerics. You'll hate them.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. Don't stop playing clerics. Just learn to adjust your play style. Clerics are battle-hardened warriors.
Yes.
Who happen to have
army
the ability.
Chaplains.
Yeah, they're army chaplains. They are hard. They are hard hitting. If they're played right, they can be extremely powerful and extremely valuable on the field of combat.
They are closer to what World of Warcraft paladins are than they are to what World of Warcraft priests are.
True story.
And it's something I really wish it's like, if you can learn anything from this podcast, take that one from us.
That's a good one.
And stop playing freaking clerics like they're priests.
And on that note, we're out of time. So next week, did you throw our next week's topic away? Of course you did.
I don't think I did. Next week. Min-maxing and optimization.
So, next week we're going to talk about min-maxing and optimization.
If you have any questions
about it, leave them in the comments below. If you have any questions you'd like to ask us that aren't related to that, leave those in the comments below too. Tell us we're doing a wonderful job. Tell us we're doing a terrible job. We don't care. We love you anyways. Maybe not. But if you like what we're doing, please click like and subscribe. If you want to hate watch us, definitely subscribe. And thank you for joining us. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, have a good day, guys.
See you next week.
Y'all.